This episode, just like every episode, is sponsored by Dis-Chem Living Fit. With a wide range of fitness products, wherever you are in your goals, whatever your fitness challenge may be, Dis-Chem Living Fit has the products for you. Travis Sloan, thank you so much for coming through. It is
Thank you
pronounced
very
Sloan.
much. Sloan, yes. No E.
No E. So you are a hunter, a gatherer, what's your title at work?
At work, I must be honest, the title means nothing. I'm pretty much do everything. Been at the company a long time, been through it. They started there at about 700 clients. We sit on 8,000 clients.
Sure. Security company.
So I've been through all the phases, and that sometimes ropes me into doing a lot of different positions because I understand the history of the business. But technically, my title is Head of Brand Strategy.
Head of Brand Strategy. Okay.
Yeah.
So you dealing with, obviously, the security personnel. You're also dealing with, the clients themselves.
100%. I think
recently
I've turned more to staff-facing roles.
Okay.
So internal, working on morale and all that kind of stuff. But my sole responsibility is large contract clients, looking after them from every request to just making sure that we don't receive any nasty cancellations.
Yeah. So you obviously have the security training, the firearm training. So let's go back, because I was watching some of your videos on Instagram. It's actually really cool to see your proficiency with rifles and handguns and all of that. So
you must have gone way back.
I did. I went to your first post. I went to the beginning. So
I haven't even gone that far for a long time.
So growing up, were your parents, what were their careers?
So growing up is probably like the foundation of who I am today. Didn't have a father. He's alive and I know where he is and all that, but he just was never involved. Parents got divorced at 4 and he just wasn't involved. Single mom for a long time. She remarried when I was about 7 or 8. And first few years was awesome, but then when they had a kid, he turned. He became quite a bit of a narcissist. It started emotional abuse, turned to physical abuse. And at 6 years old, I have a Christmas photo. 6 years old, we went to Durban, and I wore my, who's deceased now, my uncle's uniform. He was in the Air Force. And I told my mom, 6 years old, I'm going to military. And from 6 till about 13, it was all about guns and action and fighting and, building bases and thinking that's what military is all about. But at 14, I was still saying the same thing. I'm going to go to military. So my mom organized me to meet a Royal Marine. And he kind of just brought me in line with reality. Listen, it's going to be horrible. You're going to be treated like crap. It's not all glory and action like you think it's going to be. And for some reason, that really resonated with me. And
in a good way, as in it encouraged you actually to go into it more.
100%. Then I was completely sold. So funny enough, the action and everything fell away. And I think, the lack of strong male role models in my life. Subconsciously, I didn't know this at the time. I was too young to figure myself out then. But subconsciously, I think I was really desiring a strong male role models to take charge and teach me and educate me. And where better else do you get that than in the military? So I think subconsciously, that's what I was drawn to then. Like, finally, I'm going to have some kind of direction and mentorship and that kind of stuff. And I've always found a way to pick the best parts of men that I meet in my life. And learn the lessons that I can and forget the stuff that's not the best parts of them. But I knew that's like military was my thing. 15, I start training. Everything good?
Yeah. No, I'm just checking. I just always peer around just to check everything's cool.
15, I start physically training. So just to fill in the gap, sorry. So 14, my mom and stepdad have a big physical altercation and I try to step in, but I'm 14 years old. So what happens there is he essentially kicks me out. And for 2 years, I pretty much lived between homes and boarding school because he just wouldn't let my mom see him or see me. So for 2 years, that was really crucial. Boarding school gave me a lot of structure, and it was Hoërskool Becker in the mountains in Magaliesburg, who's known for corporal punishment and all that kind of stuff. So really, how would I say it? A defiant young teenager that had a lot of issues at home.
Are you Afrikaans?
No.
Is Becker only Afrikaans?
Bilingual.
Okay.
So being a defiant teenager, coming from a troubled home and all that, I was acting up a lot. And Becker really brought me back into line and, disciplined me in the way that I needed to, and also took me away from that kind of environment, put me in the mountains. And I think that's probably where my love for bush truly came from. every afternoon the rebels would, gather up and would shoot down to the river when no one's watching and would swim till like 5 o'clock in the evening, come back for dinner, which we weren't allowed to do. But I think that's maybe where the hint of the love of the bush also came from. And to jump forward, my mom eventually builds up the courage, financially and courage to leave him. And we get a small 2-bedroom apartment. And the rest of my high school life, I was actually sleeping on a couch in the lounge. So my mom could sleep in a bunk bed with my little brother. Sure. And my sister was still studying at the time, so she got her own room. And that was our living, circumstances my whole high school. And at 15, so jumping back 15, I moved back with my mom and I meet this Royal Marine, and now it gets really serious. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And for 3 years, I trained 5 to 6 days a week, 3 times almost every day. And then matric year, I meet a guy that introduces me to the Foreign Legion. This whole time I'm thinking I'm going to join the SANDF, South African Defence Force. And he's like, listen, not really what you want to do, but if you really want to join military, French Foreign Legion. And then for a whole year, I didn't change the goal. The goal is still military, but I changed the location. I'm going to go to France. And pretty much from grade 10 to 12, so 16 to 18 or 19, I actually started a car washing business. So weekends, I wasn't partying, wasn't drinking, wasn't doing anything. I was just hustling to build up enough funds. Grade 10 and 11 was to build funds to learn firearms, because I never had a male mentor that understood firearms. So literally save 1,500, 2,000 Rand, go on a course, whether it's anti-poaching, tracking, 3-day survival, pistol fundamentals, whatever it was, I needed to learn as much as I could. Once you get to military, you realize it's less about the firearms and more about discipline and mental strength and physical strength and all that. Then matric year, I started saving for my flight. Mom met me halfway. She helped me as well, but shipped off 6 days after matric finals to the French Foreign Legion. That was very short-lived, unfortunately. I'd rolled my ankle plenty of times, but they picked it up during basics, and I didn't graduate from the class of 2016. Come back home, and now I'm a bit lost. My whole identity is wrapped up in Travis's going to military. It's been 13 years that I've been saying this message to people and putting in their heads that I'm going to be a military. So I've got a bit of an identity crisis. Like, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, because I thought I knew, and take up a job. And I've been there for like 7 days, and get a call from a guy who's now What
was the job?
It was Canon, the guys that do cameras and all that kind of stuff, but it was the printing side of the business. My mom knew someone that knew someone, and they're like, listen, come suss it out. And 7 days in, I get the most random phone call, who's now one of my closest friends, one of 3 closest friends, Brian Whale. And he's like, I can't tell you who you're going to look after. I can't tell you what you're going to do. But you're going to pick up a car from OR Tambo. You're going to drive to this pin drop. I'm going to meet you. And then we're going to go to another location. And I made the mistake of mentioning it in a podcast I was on last week, but we ended up looking after a member of a royal family. And from there, my bodyguarding and close protection career took place. And I pretty much had to learn on the job, because once you get a job, there's no time for skill development and up training. You work in 28 days, 29 days of the month, 12 to 14 hour shifts. And so I pretty much had to learn on the job. But within a year, I'd gone from the newbie to the guy running details and all that kind of stuff. And then from there, I started leading teams. So, we got a permanent client for about 2.5 years.
This was all in private security?
All in the private security industry. So not under any flag of any sorts. But I had to look after a family for about 2.5 years. We got in hostage situations. We had to evac through helicopters, all that kind of stuff.
Was
really
that,
cool stuff.
Did you experience that locally, or was
all
it
South Africa?
Okay.
All South Africa. There was a couple of newspaper articles where we in called the Joburg Mercenaries
any that
and
you
that
can
kind of
tell
stuff.
us, like what the situations that happened? That's obviously the details you can share.
So one that's completely out there and we share all the time, the hostage situation. Unfortunately, it's an African guy, a part of a congregation, 3-4 million members strong. And there was a big family political issue, who gets who takes the reins, because the father had passed away. And it was the new blood, so the stepmom and her family, versus the real blood, which was the oldest son and the youngest son. And that just split the church in half, and these guys are almost like guerrilla warfare. And so,
which is quite ironic, being a church.
Being a church, 100%. But when there's billions of rands involved, it can get very nasty very quickly. And so we kind of knew territories that we need to stay away from, where we had support, where we didn't have support. And one day he just decided that we're going to go and check out one of his buildings that he's building with his architect and all that. We knew it was close to territories we shouldn't be. So we had a few extra guys. And next minute, he just decided he wants to go and lecture these guys because they've, disrespected his family and his father's legacy and all that kind of stuff. And next thing we know, we're in a compound that's probably about 1.5 k's by maybe 800 meters. It's a massive, massive compound. And next minute, guys that were our extraction team outside are getting rushed with guys with AKs. So they evac in. We left alone on the inside. Gates are getting barricaded.
Yeah.
And for the next 9 hours, we're stuck in there on our own. We managed to unfinished mansion that his father had built. It's like a 26-bedroom cinema, indoor koi pond. It's just ridiculous. Something
Can you
from
mention
a movie.
what country this was
South
in?
Africa.
Oh, was it
all
in South Africa? Oh, okay.
It's all South Africa. And
I was thinking maybe Africa somewhere.
no, this is all South Africa. And so we end up managing to get away from this pretty much just mob mentality. They're picking up anything they can. Some of them are armed. It's the guards that actually look after the estate that are now coming after us as well. And there's only 2 of us on the inside because our extraction team was outside.
The highest bidder is always going to get the most security.
So, and for some reason, we never did. We never booked out the rifles unless there was events or stuff. But for some reason, myself and Brian Whale, the gentleman that our relationship has grown
actually,
at
I know
this
Brian.
time.
I was actually going to get him on the podcast. I still need to.
Awesome, Oak. So that morning, we were booking out the rifles together. And for some reason, we were booking out the firearms together. And for some reason, we just said like vests, AKs, 120 rounds each. Just got a gut feeling. We were very good at a sixth sense call. Like today, we need a vest up. And so we went full gear. AKs, 120 rounds each. Pistols, I think we're actually probably running over 200 rounds.
What was your team? How many in the team?
Me and Brian and a driver. Extraction team was stuck outside and eventually had to evac themselves.
But I'm saying for all that gear, how many people were using all that gear?
Brian, AK 120 rounds. Travis, AK 120 rounds. Each with a Glock 19 Gen 4 at those times. And then when you get to know me and Brian, and if you check the photos and stuff, we are crazy about additional magazines. Ammo. When a gun runs out of bullets, it means absolutely nothing. And just so happened that day we geared up really hard when we had no reason to. And so now back to the compound. We eventually in the compound driving away from this mob mentality. We spot the mansion, the gates open. We decide we're going to go in there. We're going to barricade. We're going to lock it down until we can, get some assistance. And it turns out they have access to the compound's mansion as well. So at that point, Brian puts his AK on the ground and literally bare hands rips a gate motor out the ground. And we proceed to 9-hour standoff. Don't want to get into the details because it caused a lot of ramifications. But a 9-hour standoff with these guys, stuff happened. And eventually task force, I don't know if it was task force or if it was highway patrol and 2 hostage negotiators from SAPS. It was about 9 police vehicles in total and probably about 20 or 25 guys from SAPS as well.
Where in South Africa? Province. Don't have to,
province.
Yeah.
Is it boundary Gauteng and Northwest?
Okay.
Yeah, boundary. It very likely falls just on the boundary of Gauteng and Northwest.
So is that kind of like just in between Harties and Joburg?
No, not north. It's more west.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I would say just past Soweto, next suburb after Soweto. I don't want to go. If I say the suburb's name, everyone will know exactly who we're talking about.
Because there's also not that many buildings that size.
Yes, and that size and all that kind of stuff. And so barricade ourselves in there 9 hours. Eventually hostage negotiators get them to open up the gates. Just a barrage of police vehicles come through to split the crowd because at the end of the day, we didn't want to cause unnecessary casualties or more than there was already. And so the police were really trying to eliminate that and negotiate that they are going to lose their lives if they continue this course of action, get pulled out. And after that, there was a lot of court cases and that kind of stuff. And it started following us home. My missus started reporting, a white vehicle, same make, same model. And it just kept getting closer and closer to our house when she'd come home from my house. At that time, we weren't living together. I was like 21, 22 years old. Company puts bodyguards on her. We do counter surveillance initiatives, trying to track down this vehicle, see if we can ambush them, all that kind of stuff. And then my missus just says, not the life for me. And then I just started doing some reflection and I just realized I'm 22 years old, got decent amount of experience, but I'm managing guys that are 10, 15 years older than me. So what's going to happen when I reach their age bracket? The younger guys are going to take over. It's kind of like sport. You're going to age out. So that's when I moved to the retail sector at Spartan Arms, which is a firearms store.
Sorry to interject.
Go.
That obviously questioning things. You've got a lady. You don't want to put your life on risk when someone else will obviously pay the price if something happened to you. Not just yourself, obviously maybe getting injured, losing your life, but then her losing you as well. how was that also, making that decision? Was it majoritively, I'm doing this for us, for her, for my own safety? Or was there also aspects of, why am I putting myself at risk for these type of people just for money? Am I just seeking a thrill? Like, why am I actually doing this? Like, did you start questioning those things about, like, what's your true intention behind? Is it like chasing adrenaline? Is it, what exactly were you questioning there?
So look, at that stage, obviously, I'm still trying to fill this void of I didn't make it in military, or I didn't get to where I wanted to get in military. So I am trying to fill the void of being an operator and, working with firearms every day and protection and all that kind of stuff. But it's not as glamorous as everyone thinks. I think 2.5 years on that client, we had 2 incidents. And that means every other day is sitting at his house, taking him where he wants, taking him on holidays, spending Christmas with him, his birthdays with him, public holidays with him. So it's not as glamorous as it's made out to be. The decision was kind of forced. We eventually were getting into so many unnecessary situations that where he stayed, the state wouldn't let us in anymore because of the guns. It's a very prestigious estate in Pretoria. And because of the disruptions we would cause, they stopped letting us in. And that kind of caused the contract to come to a halt. And then at that time, it was just like everything was lining up to just be like, this isn't for me anymore. A portion of, I must be honest, I only really came to light of putting yourself into unnecessary danger quite recently, which I'll chat to you about just now. But at that time, it was more about seeing the guys age out in front of me, the 35s, the 38s, the 40s age out in front of me. And then most importantly, the case where my missus was getting followed. And that really just was like, it's not worth it.
The aging out in front of you, is that just more because the pay wasn't really enough to be replaced at 35 or whatever? Now what do you do with only, experience with private security? What am I going to do next? Or what was the phasing out worry about it?
The age out problem is you got to be capable to do the job. So there is an age limit to it. You got to be quick, you got to be fit, you got to be strong, you got to be sound of mind, you got to have quick reflexes. And what I was doing was actually, I'm too small to be a proper close protection officer. I'm short. You've seen me. I'm like 175. So what I would normally be a part of is a CAT team, counter assault team, or otherwise known as QRF, quick reaction force. So we would be right behind in a chase vehicle. And if shit goes down, we would actually do the fighting, and close protection officers pull the client out. You never want to be fighting with the client. You want to extract the client. So you'll have a team to extract client, and we would do the physical fighting. That requires a certain sense of physical capabilities. And what I also found is guys would have their prime in their younger years because families would want to keep them. And then they would get replaced and they'd be seeking part-time work as they get older. So I was just, it's almost like I was looking in a mirror when I was looking at these guys, and I was like, is this really where I want to be? Do I want to be looking for the next 1,500, 2,000 Rand a day? Or do I want to be seeking a career that's going to, be long lasting? And that's essentially that, coupled with a vehicle and guys following my missus home and putting her through having bodyguards and counter surveillance and almost using her as bait, which is horrible. It sounds horrible, but she's got to keep to her normal routine so we can catch the guys that are potentially coming after us. And if they're after her, what other information do they know? Is it the other guys in the team's missus that are in danger as well? And so after all that, it was just like, it's time to change.
When you got into this, were you already in the relationship?
My missus and I have been together since she was 15 and I was 16.
Sure, okay. So I'm sure there was maybe some advice that people gave you, like, watch out, you're going into something that's very solitary with just your team, outside life is very difficult to have. I assume obviously people maybe told you that or not.
No, not at all. At the time, a lot of the guys that I was in was young, maybe 5 years older than me. So they've had the experience, but still young. Most of the guys didn't have stable relationships, which means they couldn't really give me relationship advice. What did help is that she was prepared not to see me for 2 to 3 years because the Foreign Legion would be quite demanding in your very early stages of onboarding with them. So we were prepping not to see each other for a very long time or be absent or bad communication, long distance. So I think we were already like, I'm home, we get to sleep together at night, we get to see each other. So already to us, it was like, life was a lot better than what it
We're
would have
seeing
been.
each other way more now
Than we
Yeah.
would have been had my journey at Foreign Legion lasted longer. So I think we're just being appreciative of that in the moment. But very quickly it became apparent. I mean, Christmases, I would get home 9, 10 o'clock at night and I'd have to have a cold meal. That the Christmas just before I left the industry, it also got to me. I got home, the family had a great day together. I had to look after the client for him to have a good time with his family. Get home, powers off because of load shedding, ate a cold meal, and everyone's toning down, and I'm ready to spend time with the family. And I was just like, again, it was just like I kept seeing myself in a mirror, but 10, 15 years from then, I was like, is this really where I want to go?
And it's difficult because also you have that dream of as a kid, and you have these ambitions and these goals, and you idolize that career and that line of work and, that lifestyle. Then you get to it, and then initially maybe you realize it's not exactly what you want. Yes, maybe those things that you're idolizing were exactly almost what it was like. It is high adrenaline. It is, high stakes. It is
A sense of importance.
a sense of importance.
Nothing feels cooler when you're walking in public and you got 6 guys fully capable, full gear, walking, and people are just splitting and moving and watching. It's a bit of an ego thing as well. But yes, it's
But
wasn't as
all of
glamorous.
those things that you idolized about it, on the other side of the coin, were so many negatives that obviously you weren't aware of until you experience it.
Yeah.
And then those negatives, put a bad picture on the positives.
Yeah. Well, luckily,
Not a bad picture in the
But
sense
yes.
that you don't like it.
and I think that's relevant to any course or thing that you want to do in life or thing that you're pursuing. You won't know all the things about it or all the things you like and don't like until you tackle it.
Yeah. But I think that's, as you say, it's with anything in life, because you will never get a full picture of something until you go through it and you experience it. And, every career, like people, like now with social media, everyone sees these entrepreneurs on social media.
Everyone
And
sees
they're
the
like-
good stuff.
Yeah, you just see the good stuff because most entrepreneurs, a lot of people obviously show the early mornings, the late nights, maybe not the empty bank balances, that kind of stuff, but they do share the difficulties that they go through. But mostly on social media, you're seeing the positives, and people think it's all, sunshine and rainbows. And
Yeah.
I'm stuck in an office job. This sucks. It must be so nice for that entrepreneur. Whereas, no, it's not that nice.
No.
There's, working for someone else. I was actually having this discussion the other night. There's so many positives for both. I don't think anything in life is, like the universe essentially, like Stephen Hawking. I was reading this book where it was saying we know that nothing can be destroyed. Matter can't be destroyed. It can be transferred. So when like the Big Bang happened, let's say, the space that was created an inflection, like negative space. So yes, life is unfair, but everything is balanced. So some people have an amazing life, very little hardship, things are amazing. Some people have a terrible life. It's luck of the draw, but everything kind of evens out. Every decision you have is a million possibilities of something else that you said no to. Entrepreneurship, there's a lot of struggles, there's a lot of benefits. Working for someone else, there's benefits in terms of a secure paycheck,
100%.
all of those things, but then there's struggles of being told what to do, strict working hours, whatever. So everything is really actually balanced.
It's all balanced.
It's just not fair. Life's not fair, but it's balanced.
I think entrepreneurship is 10 times harder because you cannot, especially when it's yours, you cannot turn off.
Yeah.
You cannot turn off. You are thinking of every aspect of the business. If you work a 9 to 5, normally you have a job description. You know clearly what your goals and targets are for the day, for the week, for the month. And then you got the luxury, or not the luxury, you deserve it, you've worked hard for it, but you've got the comfort of knowing exactly what's coming into your bank at the end of the month. I think entrepreneurship, you wear so many hats, especially when you're starting out, or if you're trying to be a one-man band. It's marketing, it's media, it's content creation, it's the financials of the business, it's trying to onboard new clients, navigate those clients, look after. It's just you're wearing so many different hats and you cannot turn off.
Yeah.
So I think it's a give and take for both. You're probably sacrificing your dreams. Unless my missus is an architect, she works for a firm. Since we've known each other since we were 15, 16 years old, she wanted to be an architect. So she's working a day job for a boss, but she's living her dream. So if you have a goal in life, it doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur to make something of yourself. But sometimes people might be sacrificing the goals and dreams they have for their life for the comfort of a 9 to 5.
Yeah. But you can also be an entrepreneur. So you can.
I tell you, never heard of that term before ever. And it came up on social media like 6-7 days ago. And I was like, that's me.
Yes.
I enjoy, I've run some of my own businesses quite successfully, but
photography being one of them.
Photography, videography. I mean, when I started where I am now at the security company, I started as a sales rep and I've worked my way up to over the last 3 years, I've been an HOD in the business. But right in the beginning, I started a media company while I was doing sales for them and I was doing very, very well. Where were we going with this?
Entrepreneur.
I read that the other day. And I think that is definitely more my personality. I like to go into an establishment, find where they're not capitalizing on the gaps within their own business and try and I feel like that's what I've done at my business. I really identified everything they've missed, all the and they have the resources or they already have.
And they encourage you to do that.
Yes. And just give you the free reign to be like, run with it, create a project. Don't be part of a project, create a project, drive it. And I think it's just so funny you say entrepreneur because I've never heard of it before until about 6 days ago.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean, you see, a lot of people glorify entrepreneurship and creating your own business. It's become cool. It's breaking free of the matrix, all of that. But you're still in the matrix.
Completely.
Like maybe you get to dictate your time a little bit more, but also slightly not, So an entrepreneur, and actually interestingly enough, companies like Google really, really encourage entrepreneurship, where things like, I think Google Drive was something an employee created and came up with the idea of because they were encouraged and they get incentives to, come up with ideas within the organization. So I think it is so important for organizations, and luckily you work at one where they do encourage you to create your own projects, not just be a part of them. But it's nice when you are encouraged and given that freedom to be able to do it, because you can be a mini entrepreneur within a company where there is a CEO or whatever, and you can still, be creative in the entrepreneurial way within an organization. And it's also nice because not all the if something goes wrong is on you. Obviously, if you have to mess up,
I think it's all the best parts. Entrepreneurship is all the best parts of entrepreneurship, but with no risk.
Yeah,
because the risk doesn't lie on you. If it falls flat, the CEO is going to has to cover the cost. The business has to cover the costs. So I think you got a lot more freedom to make mistakes and improve on them and all that kind of stuff. Whereas entrepreneurship, especially if funds is an issue, you kind of got to get it right off bat.
Yeah.
Or the pressure to get it right off bat is present all the time.
Yeah, and that's also with social media is difficult because it's being encouraged. Then people maybe quit their jobs, and then that pressure's there because now your salary's gone. You quit, so there's no payout. Your company didn't give you any money to leave because you quit. Now everything's on you. There's so much pressure on you, and that's also. But as social media, it's always pretty much posting the positives of things and showing how easy things are. And this is my car, this is my that, this is my this. And then people see that and they think that's how that particular lifestyle, whatever, is like.
I was thinking while I was driving over here about Joe Rogan and how successful his podcast is and the money he makes. And the problem is people will look at him and be like, I'm going to start a podcast. But they don't think of everything that's gone into Joe Rogan becoming what he has become today. And there's been a lot of mountains he's had to overcome. And I don't think he's famous because of a podcast. The podcast complements his celebrity status already. So understanding where you are in your journey and how you're going to get there. And what I always say to people is do a side hustle. And when that side hustle can cover what you need to live and you're only doing 15 hours a week in it, then I can almost guarantee you if you do your 40-hour week that you normally do at work into your side hustle, you're going to make infinitely more. But you can't I call it the 30-year-old DJ effect. You constantly going for the I'm going to make it, I'm going to be there, I'm going to, but you're not bringing funds in right now. So I would say always keep your day job, create the side hustle. When the side hustle meets the income that you're making at your day job and you're only doing 15, 20 hours a week, drop the full-time job, because now you're going to increase your work hours on the side hustle, which would, again, in theory, increase your income.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the moment, I would say what I've tried to do is like with the studios, because I have a marketing company, I was obviously, that was making more money. So I was focusing on that while trying to build up the podcast studio. Then they kind of got level. And then I saw which one's more scalable. Okay, the podcast, the growth has been more exponential. Everything that way is better. Let's focus more time on there. Then it can grow because you can put more time in it. But I think you need to wait, as you say, cover your expenses or start earning the same within your side hustle as what your day job is. Then maybe you can stop your day job.
And get a bit of a proof of concept. Guys drop up way too soon. Like early day success, friends, family, friends of friends, friends of family, they'll support you, but that wears off quite quickly.
Because they're not going to be that honest. They're just going to be like,
let's help Michael or whatever, So I think get a proof of concept, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. And when you can see the escalation of growth, escalation of income, all that kind of stuff, then you can make a very, let's call it, well-rounded decision of dropping a cushy income versus, or even you're an entrepreneur on both sides, the marketing but you needed to make sure you put in effort to both of them before you could start saying one is doing better than the other. If I put focus, I could scale it.
So one of obviously videography and everything is another one of your side hustles, but also I want to go into the passion, your bow hunting, because you make survival videos, outdoor adventure videos. So why, we'll get into the actual videos and everything, but why you personally do you prefer to hunt with a bow as opposed to like a rifle?
It's a tough. So I'll do it personally. So also I was on a podcast with a good friend the other day. It'll go live the next few days. Let's quickly start with this message. People are inherently programmed, I guess it's the same thing, to shit on each other, right? So a guy that shoots with a wooden bow will crap on a guy like me that shoots with a compound bow. I, as a compound shooter, would look down on a crossbow, which is more like a rifle, but it's with an arrow. A crossbow shooter still thinks he's better than a rifle shooter because it's a bow. It's harder, it's got shorter range. And then the rifle shooters think they're better than the next person and the next person. And then there's categories in all those hunters. You got hide hunters, walk-in stalkers, guys that just shoot off a bucky. I didn't make the decision because I think everyone has it easy if they shoot with a gun. I think everyone is seeking their own adventure and thrill. For me, however, coming from the close protection and all that, I've shot probably just on my own pistol alone, I've done about 36,000 rounds. So I've shot a lot with firearms. So for me, it would be an hour to 2 hours of sighting in a firearm, and then I'd go out into the bush. First animal I see at 300 meters, I put it down and that adventure's over. The bucket comes, picks up the animal. There was no challenge. I think, again, military, it was all about the challenge. It's about overcoming something. And so I knew I wanted to start hunting. My Opa died in 2019 and he was a big hunter. In the later years of his life, he didn't have the finances to hunt, but in his younger years of life, a massive hunter, but a rifle hunter. And so that kind of sparked something in me. And then when COVID ended and finances got better, I was like, I really want to get into hunting. But firearms wasn't an option. I was like, that's just going to be too easy for me. Don't want to put it out there. For me, some guys get the thrill of doing their custom rounds. So they have to load their own powder and cartridges and heads and primers, and they have to tune them and spend hours on the range testing like 1 grain differences in gunpowder. And that's all for them. But for me, I would have just bought a box off the shelf, stuck with a name brand, and I would have been ready to go. So I knew I wanted to do hunting, but I wanted a challenge. I wanted something that was going to challenge me as an individual. And then I just spoke to James from Southwest Holsters. I don't know if you know who James is.
Yeah. I met him at Tactical HQ once. Yeah.
So James and I are very close. That's the guy I was on the podcast with
I saw on Instagram.
So James and I are very close. And so I just popped him a message and I just said, listen, you're into bow hunting. It looks cool. What's your take? Where should I go? Where should I start? And he pointed me in the right direction. And then the rest is just absolute history. I have been obsessed with making it harder and harder every hunt that I go on.
So by harder and harder, what kind of challenges do you put there?
So first year I went balls to the walls. I was putting all resources into going on a hunt. I think first year, which was 2021, I went on a hunting trip every month for the year. It was ridiculous. But it was a lot of hide hunting. So that's where you sit in a box, sometimes camouflage, sometimes not, over a water hole. And when an animal comes in, if you've got the budget, you shoot it. And so that was okay for a while because I was more trying to get into tune with hunting an animal with a bow. But once I got good with a bow, that was like, I started feeling like if I put this animal on my wall and I put the meat on the table, what's the story behind it? And I started being like, well, I watched Netflix. I downloaded Stranger Things season 4, watched Netflix, fell asleep, woke up, oh, this animal's at the water hole, and I shot it. And I started realizing for me again, that's just not Travis. And so then I started thinking, how can I make this more difficult? Or how could I make it more of an adventure and worthy? If I'm going to take a life of an animal, it needs to be a trade of skill for life. And so then I got into the walking and stalking. So then you stay in a lodge at night, but then 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, before sun even breaks the horizon, you're in the bush and you walk. I mean, on a 3-day trip, we do anything from 50 to 60 kilometers of walking. So we really push. And that challenges an individual. But again, I was like, what's the next thing? And really YouTube forced me to go into the survival thing. But then I got into the fact of like, why don't I just sleep in the bush? Like I don't come out the bush until I've got something.
So we still are 100% be going to do it. So do you want to explain like the premise of what our YouTube video, well, the hunting aspect of it would be? Because that's now the most challenged point that you're at. Obviously with me, you make it a bit easier for me. But maybe. Is that like, I hope you don't. I don't want you to. I want the full travel experience. But is that now the most, limitations you've put on the hunt?
So it gets worse, but because I'm about to make it worse for myself. But so first survival trip, February last year, we took no water, no food, and we took hammocks. No water is an issue because when you start drinking water from the land and you don't purify it properly, you're going to catch something. And so after 2 days of drinking water from the earth, we got E. coli. Like really bad. My camera guy at the time didn't land up in hospital, I don't know. But I mean, for the whole night he was throwing up. Too dangerous to track in the night through the bush. Bush dysphoria was big that night already. We lost our camp. It took us like 2 hours to get back to our camp, which was already a bit camoed. So yeah, it was just a lot of bush dysphoria. So we said, okay, we're going to sleep out the night. Sunrise, we're going to call the rangers to come get us. Rangers aren't picking up phone. So then we had to pack up camp, leave camp, and walk 6 Ks back to the ranger's house to be like, listen,
dehydrated,
camera guy,
E. coli.
100%. I only started showing symptoms in the morning. He had showed symptoms the entire night. So by the morning, he's super weak. So I was like, don't carry anything. I'll carry everything. We're going to head back to camp. And then after that trip, it took like 7 days to stabilize. And I kind of need to get back to work the day after. So we realized, right, I can't be that intrusive. So now all my survival trips, I take limited water. So I do try to push myself through stages of dehydration. So, I mean, we walk 30 Ks or 20 Ks a day, and I'm only doing like 300 milliliters of water a day.
That's nothing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's smaller than a pump water bottle. And I'm
what is this? This is...
It should be like 250.
330. So basically like this.
So it's this. So I ration out a liter over 3 days. So that's the challenging factor, but I just don't drink from the earth anymore. It's just not worth being sick longer than the period of the trip. But essentially, bare basics, no food. And nowadays, I do no shelter either. So that's no hammock, nothing.
Just a sleeping bag? No sleeping bag?
No sleeping bag. Whatever's on my back.
Just a ghillie suit.
A ghillie suit. And then a tradition of mine, literally from the day I started hunting, my Opa, 3 months before he passed, my grandfather, he was like, I've got this hunting jacket. It's just like, it's like sheep wool on the inside. It's very thick. He's like, I got this hunting jacket. I'm not going to ever hunt again. I don't think I'll ever be able to. So, I mean, it's yours. And so when he passed and then I got into hunting a year and a half later, it's been a tradition to take it on every hunt. So you'll see I've got this raggedy jacket that I always wear on my trips when it gets cold, and it's his jacket. And so that's the only warm thing I've really got. And like I said, this is of recent. But then, yeah, so rationed water, no food, 5 arrows, and a bow. and some basic tools like a saw and a spade, stuff that I can bury a fire once I've made it so I don't cause a bushfire and that kind of stuff. And I go out into the bush 3-4 days, and if I don't hunt something on the first day, I don't eat. If I don't hunt something on the second day, I don't eat until I'm successful and I get something.
So now let's say you're able to get something on the first day. Do you then continue and try to get more? Or obviously it depends on what you've organized for the trip.
On my side, I'm funding everything myself. I'm partnered with Magnum Archery, but I'm not sponsored by anyone, which means all costs falls on my shoulder. So definitely not hunting more than one animal on a trip. But day one, very rarely, except for recently, I'm successful because I spend a lot of time on where I'm going to sleep. So prepping the ground, prepping the fireplace, prepping firewood, all that kind of stuff, because during the day it's easy to stay warm because you're active, but at night, the minute you lie down and the body, the heart rate drops and the body stabilizes, you just start getting colder and colder. So firewood for the night. So normally I'm not successful on the first day because I'm spending so much time on setting myself up on where I'm going to sleep. But if I am successful, then it would require me to slug the animal, take the part of the animal that I want to eat for that night, and then I would either call rangers or track it to where the rangers stay to let them put it in a cold room and stuff so the meat doesn't go to waste. South Africa's climate is just not conducive to preserve meat. It goes off, especially in the heat, it just goes off too quickly. So I'd waste a whole animal for a small piece of meat in a video. So it's just not something that sits right with me.
So something that's not too expensive, that proves to be a bit of a challenge to hunt, or maybe not a challenge, but more of a challenge for you. What do you enjoy going for that doesn't cost like an arm and a leg?
So on my side, especially survival videos, you can't have a target species. There's a saying, especially when I started walking, when I sat in a hide, I used to be like, I want Roland Ward, I want the biggest horns, I want the biggest male. Like it's as if you're ordering from a kitchen. But when you walk and stalk, I've got a saying, you take what the bush gives you. So the animal that didn't spot you, didn't smell you, didn't realize that you're within 60 yards of it, or stands really perfect, like it's a trait of skill for life. The animal that dropped its guard on that day and allowed me to get in with bow distance is the animal I'm going to take. So if it's a female, obviously pregnant, never. So during pregnant season or during mating season, I'll only hunt males. But now during this winter season, you can go for anything. They're not mating. So male, female, from warthog to blesbok, impala, wildebeest. The problem is as you go bigger, it gets harder to work because I've got to walk it. So a wildebeest averages 90 to 100 kilos of carcass weight. So, I mean, once you keep the skin on and the head on, you're looking at about 140 kilos.
You better chow all of it before you carry.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you saw my latest video, the pig, the European boar, that was 110 kilos with his head and skin on.
Yeah.
And that was horrible. Carrying that thing was a nightmare.
I can imagine.
It was not fun. It almost broke me. And so I really want to go for something that's manageable. But at the end of the day, if I have to do 6 kilometer trips where I just hike quarters of the animal out, so it's only 25 to 30 kilos at a time, then I'll do it.
We initially had intended on an ostrich. How much does an ostrich weigh?
So, truth be told, I've never hunted a ostrich.
Okay.
So I haven't done enough research. I would say it must be on the region of 20 kilos, 25 kilos. An impala averages 20 to 25 kilos. And so I'm just trying to like reshape an impala to a big ass chicken. And
it's got skinny legs, skinny-ish neck, quite muscular though.
All the meat's over there. Take the organs out. I would do a confident guess of 20 to 25, but I could be completely wrong.
And you haven't hunted it before. Do you not think it would be more difficult because of the speed or not?
The ostriches, especially when they got babies, they're very wary, but I've got very close to ostriches in the bush, and they're looking at me. So it's as if like they're not intimidated. It also depends where you are. Animals that are highly pressured by hunters know that we are predators. And then animals that aren't hunted a lot feel very confident, as if like you can't afford me, you poor piece of shit. So like you walk onto a farm and it's 2,000 hectares and a sable costs like 40,000 rand, and they just like couldn't care that you're in the bush.
Because like one in every 50 people that come.
Because it's like, dude, you look broke as shit. Like those arrows look 2 years old.
They watch you the sable watch you when you pull up to the resort.
Yeah,
and
they check what model and car it is.
What car is that? Okay, no, that guy can't afford to hunt me. I'm okay.
And if they don't see you driving, it's like, is is that the Sony lens from 4 years ago? This broke piece of shit. But no, but then you'll get high pressure animals, warthogs, super skittish. Wherever I've been, I've never seen a chilled warthog. Impala, blessbuck, head on a swivel, herd mentality. One spots you, they've all spotted you, they're gone. So it just depends what's hunted a lot in that area. Wherever I've been, ostriches are chilled. Like they don't let you get very close, but they get 60, 70 yards where I'm confident they're letting you get in that kind of distance.
So when are we going, bro? That's the question, because I really want to.
When me and you can line up schedules.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Luckily, this is filmed during the week, so it makes it a bit easier. But your weekends, we're both busy. But we're going to do it, bro.
We filmed... So
we have to, let's do it during winter. It makes it more difficult for us.
Dude, I'm literally shivering. I don't know what it is, but even on James's podcast, I got so cold. And like, I'm also even shivering now. So I don't know what it's going to be like midwinter. It's going to be nasty.
What kind of additional challenges? Because I saw obviously the one video, you found a lizard and then you used it as bait to catch
a chameleon.
A chameleon. You found a chameleon and used it as bait to catch a fish. Do you ever have, do you hinder yourself to the extent that, okay, I'm not allowed to have anything but the one particular animal I'm trying to hunt? Or do you say, okay, stay to, haven't seen an animal at all yet, let's catch a fish so we can at least eat?
So that video was my first survival video. That's where we caught E. coli. And what happened is we had not gotten close to any animals. We put a lot of stalks and spooked all of them. The wind was swirling and everything. And on the second day, I was like, I need to eat. And that's when I changed my game strategy. I was like, right, excuse me. I'm going to throw a hook in here. I collected everything for like a day and a half, like frogs and everything I could. That chameleon was just straight up luck. And I just thought, I'm going to throw a bunch of hooks and then go and walk and stalk more and come back before sunset and see if we've at least got a fish to eat. Because now it's 2 days, no food.
Yeah.
And at that time, no water as well. So, we were having land water, natural water. And so the fish thing, I don't normally deviate. I like to hunt with a bow, but true to the fact that it's a survival video is like you want to survive. You don't want to hinder yourself. And so I had some fishing hooks and that kind of stuff.
It's not really cheating. You still
surviving off the land.
Yeah.
But the problem was I didn't even eat that fish, and I feel really bad because I cut it up and I filleted and filleted it and all that kind of stuff. But Tristan, my cameraman, was so sick. And
fish isn't a food you want to eat.
So let me just put it into perspective. Well, I'm cooking on that little cast iron pan and I stick my knife into the cooked meat and I'm eating. He's like, Trav, just pause. Then I stop eating. He stops recording. He throws up in front of me. I'm talking like 2 meters from me, like just throwing his lungs out. Comes back, wipes his mouth, clicks record, okay, go. Then I must eat this blessbuck. So it was just like the environment was not conducive. We barely made it through eating the blessbuck. He's like, Trav, if you eat that fish in front of me, I think that's the end of me. So I was like, okay, we'll do the blessbuck. We'll go to sleep. And tomorrow morning, we pretty much evacing.
Was that the last time he filmed with you?
No. He's been incredible. We actually...
Is that the guy we shot with? No.
Yes, Tristan.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did do one together again October last year, but no one's ever seen it. The same place, 2,000 hectares, same farm as the one we did last February. But when we went there, it turns out poachers have just destroyed this farmer's land. Snares everywhere, animals dead everywhere. And so he actually a week before had helicopters and game capturers in to try and rescue the rest of the animals. So we went there, spent 3 days, and we saw 3 impala in one herd and 4 impala in another herd at like 400 meters away. And we saw giraffe and ostriches. Ostriches has babies, so they asked us not to hunt them because the males actually protect the babies more than the females once they're hatched. And the giraffe is not conducive to a survival video.
Yeah.
So, and I did one giraffe in my life with a bow. It's a very emotional animal. It takes a lot of prep and setup. You can't just take a bow that you've set up for normal hunting and then go hunt a giraffe. It's like it's a special arrow build. You tune your bow for that arrow. Everything is built for a giraffe or big game hunt.
How would you tune it differently? Just stronger?
So to put into perspective, my arrows are heavy as it is, 571 grains. To hunt a giraffe, buffalo, any kind of big game like that, you're looking at 800 to 900 grains arrow. It's physically heavy. It's no longer just, like this little thing that you're waving around. Broadheads are different. I use mechanicals, which means they stay closed and on impact they deploy. You don't want to be using that on big game because their skin and hide is very tough. So then you want a fixed blade broadhead. So there's a lot of different things. And then you got to tune for those arrows and that arrow flight. You're normally only going to get accurate up to 50 or 60 yards because even your sight is going to bottom out because the arrow is heavy, which means the sight has to travel further. So just not set up, or not even going to take the chance on a giraffe. And so
it's expensive.
So
I would imagine.
Funny enough, giraffe aren't, because what the farmers do is that, like a male or female, you're looking at 500 to 700 kilograms of meat.
Yeah.
So organs out, everything out, meat and bones, 5 to 700 kilograms. And so what they normally do is you pay a hunting fee of 4,000 or 5,000 rand. They keep the meat,
fair.
and then they sell it for 36, 40 rand a kilo, and they make infinitely more.
Yeah.
But again, I wasn't there, and mentally I wasn't prepared to. It's not even on the cards. You got to really mentally prepare for a giraffe because it's an emotional animal. It takes time, training, skill, and I did it once before, and I'm not ready in the foreseeable future for another one. And but yeah, so we filmed the whole survival video. We went really rough with just a tarp and all that kind of stuff, or we thought we were going to go rough. So the problem was, on the first day we realized everyone had told us that poaching's been bad. We get there, it has been bad. We are not seeing anything. And so what very quickly became from a survival video, it became a are we ever going to come back here video. So I didn't post anything. I ended up sorting us out in the lodge, and for 3 days that we were supposed to sleep in the bush, film a survival video and really be tested as guys, I ended up sleeping in the lodge for 2 nights, 3 days in the bush, and kind of figuring out, are we ever going to film a video here again? And the answer is, unfortunately, no. There's no animals anymore. And so we haven't posted that. I'm not going to be the guy that... And we filmed it in a way that you could have. I could have faked it that I was sleeping in the bush. And then like when the sun goes down, we climb in the car and we go chill in the lodge for the rest of the night. But I really don't want to get trapped in that content cycle of trying to create content and not being true to yourself.
Yeah, you're faking what you're actually doing, and you're being disingenuous to the people that are watching.
100%. And I actually felt so sad after that trip because it was such an empty feeling, because we, like I said, we did film it in the way we could have faked it so easily. And I got some of the best photos I've ever got of me in the bush on that trip. So it was fantastic for content. But I actually ended up deleting it on the hard drive. I don't have a copy of any of that stuff. I was just like, that is not me. Like I need to, and I didn't feel fulfilled. So I knew if I post that video, I wasn't going to feel fulfilled, and it could have been just like ramifications of a downward spiral on something that I truly love. Deleted that footage.
It's almost like also profiting off their misfortune and the poaching and all of that.
Yeah. So learning curve, we were like, cool, we need to find new farms. And that's what I've been doing over the last 6 months, is just networking with as many people as possible, communicating my vision, my goals, and what I do and how I do it. And quite funny enough, most farms will never let you walk and stalk because they want you to sit in a hide, be successful on 2-3 animals, they make their money, and you go home after 3 days. But for some reason, guys are like, I've never heard of someone doing this before. This is how we used to do it. 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, like support you. You can come to us. And that's what I've been doing over the 6 months.
You never, in your enjoyment of the challenge and like the military challenge, have thought about like anti-poaching, like joining a unit? Back then, obviously now it would be more tough with the family and all of that.
So when I was in the operator space, it never crossed my mind because I was in the outdoor. I've always loved the outdoors, but I didn't have the time to be outdoors. Like I've only really become a very outdoors with Travis, my YouTube channel. I've only really been wrapped around that world for the last 3 years. So it didn't cross my mind. But I am also a guy that is seeking somewhat of financial wealth for my family in the foreseeable future, and that's just not a career path that's going to do it for me. So, and again, risk versus reward. Like it's awesome to protect rhinos and endangered species and all that kind of stuff, but ultimately, is it worth it? I would say not.
And it's a tricky one because I studied with a guy, a close friend of mine, he was a close friend. Obviously, it gets tough when he's in Hoedspruit and you never see the guy, but he went into anti-poaching, and just seeing the passion that he has for protecting the animals and hearing some of the stories that he was allowed to tell me, it's ridiculous. The level of, I don't know, it's despicable to think that humans can be capable of that kind of torture towards animals. And it's so sad. Like, I grew up relatively privileged in the sense that I wasn't exposed to heavy amounts of crime. I I didn't get broken into as a kid. My parents, while we were driving, car never got hijacked. So I was, sheltered. In the school I was at, there was theft, but it was minor petty theft. Everything was so sheltered. And then you go into the real world and you see the corruption, you see the propaganda, you see the poaching of innocent animals, all for money. You see how this world is so driven by money. And, growing up in such a sheltered environment, and then you get exposed to the realities of the world, and it just leaves a sour taste in your mouth for people.
Yeah. A bit of
it makes you sad
animosity.
to think that how can people be like this just for money, just because of greed?
Yeah, what's tough is especially the poacher game. I know a lot of guys up in Namibia, Botswana, all that kind of stuff that train canines for anti-poaching and tracking purposes and all that. And I know some of them that have to come back home because the guys that own the farms are involved in the poaching of the rhinos and exporting of the horns and that kind of stuff. And so it's so sad because from the lowest, poverty-stricken communities that have to engage in that just to survive, to the guy that owns a multi-million rand farm, they're all engaging in it. So it's hard to point at a certain kind of person that does it. But
it's a person driven by money or driven by
greed,
power.
lack of empathy, lack of seeing the bigger picture and this world and ecosystem and where we lie in it. I think there's so many tiers of it that we don't understand. I think some guys are just kids that grew up in the wrong community, close to a farm, in a squatter camp or whatever it is, and their dads and their uncles and all of them did it, and so they trained up to do it, and unfortunately it's just the line of succession. Is that the right word? Line?
Yeah, well, they've inherited. I mean, it's the same as, growing up in Germany during, Hitler's reign. Like, if you're a 2-year-old being brought up to hate Jews or whatever, like, it's very difficult for you to understand that it's actually wrong.
Yeah.
Because, you grew up with it. Same with apartheid. People that grew up during apartheid thinking that, this is what
everything's
it is.
fine.
It's the same as it's burning of books, doing all of these things that is prevalent in all societies throughout time. It's not just
100%.
one particular time. Throughout all of history, there's been terrible. And also I think with media, we think it's so much worse now because it's constantly
it's only
put out
it's televised.
there.
Yeah, it's only the access to information has become too easy. So we think
bad news sells, so it's just bad
100% clickbait all the time. No, I must say that's one thing that I also feel like I've grown as a hunter. Right in the beginning, I just wanted to hunt. I wanted to hunt everything I could, and everything that I could afford. And in the last year and a half, especially since my family bought a farm in the Harties region, we found a cave and we found porcupine. And for 3 years, I watched, I really wanted to hunt those porcupine, but there was only 2 when we discovered them. And so for 3 years, I've been monitoring them, watch them have babies, watch them grow up, watch the cave go from 2 porcupine to 9 porcupine. And that's when I felt like I became a true hunter. A hunter should be able to know when he does hunt and when he shouldn't hunt. And in that moment, it's a male and female, or maybe 2 males, you don't know, but clearly it was a male and female. And the conservation side of hunting is so important as well. Understanding that when numbers are down, you got to protect them, and when numbers are up, you can harvest them. And that's those porcupine on the farm really developed the conservation side of me. I mean, the other day I came across 5 baby pigs, 5 baby warthogs, 2 sows, which is female warthogs, and a boar. And I was just like, I'm going to just watch them. There's a bunch of babies, future generation, let it populate. If I kill the male, how far is the next male in the region? Is he going to populate this area? Really started thinking about the conservation side of things and put aside my passion for bow hunting.
Have you seen those feral pigs in Texas? Have you seen those videos of the guys in helicopters?
Just mow with the guns. Is it my style of hunting? Definitely not. Not for me. But
I think if you had a bow, you're going to need 50 million arrows. And
I think because volume of
there's
pigs.
just so many and they destroy the crop so quick. I mean, you see those things move and they run and they scatter. So I think if you're on foot there, and I mean, in those videos, it's thousands.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be able to harvest enough with a bow.
You get 10 and then you're gone.
But I do, yeah. I think some guys do it out of crops and management, and then some guys just do it because they enjoy the kill.
Killing, yeah. Do you instinctively distrust people? Maybe someone says something, is it you're
like a red flag.
Instinctively, do you kind of distrust them? Be like, let me get more information before I trust this person.
I think all of our instincts are based on past experiences. So you might have a better instinct in business. And when someone says something, does something, acts in a certain way, you're like, I've dealt with a person like this before and this was the outcome and now it sparks a red flag. For me, I think a lot of my issues come from my childhood, from an abusive stepdad and an absent dad, which is just like a really horrible, thing. So I am always waiting for someone to let me down because my dad let me down. I'm always waiting for someone to do me dirty because stepdad did that to me. So I think it all comes down to our past experiences and then how we project those onto our interactions with other people, either in our present or in the future. But no, not necessarily. I feel like I'm a good guy. I love people, love getting to know new people. I give a lot of my time to people. And then when that backfires, I'll maybe retract.
So irrespective of what you've maybe experienced, you do give people the benefit of the doubt initially.
100%. And then I'm all about second chances. Like, I must be honest, I was a piece of shit up until I was like 13, 14 years old because I was acting out about stuff that was going on at home. And if it wasn't for like the principal of my primary school not reporting me to like social workers and stuff for juvie and that kind of stuff, because I was doing some very heavy things. And then Hoërskool Becker, who would have normally expelled me for doing weed or something like that, says, this guy has potential, like we're going to invest in him. And so my life is a story of second chances and second tries and, trying new things and moving and adjusting. So I always try and give that forward to people.
And it's difficult because people, even people that haven't maybe been in situations that you've been in, where it's life and death situations. I've never knowingly been in a life and death situation. I guess every time we get in the car in today's society,
100%.
Pretty much are. But
Susan doing her makeup and she was going to skip a red.
But it's interesting how usually the people that have experienced the most, like as you say, giving people the benefit of the doubt, where I'm I used to be, at least. I've improved a lot as I've gotten older, but I used to trust people less. But that was just a reflection of myself. So me asking you that was more just from your experience. How was it? Whereas for me, it's, don't show vulnerability. Don't trust them because they might try to pull one over you. Then they're superior to you because they've done that. So it was all like emotional based.
Yeah.
Whereas yours was, you've seen people at their worst. You've seen people do despicable things, but you still choose to obviously have faith in humanity. But it is it's very difficult.
The thing is, it sounds like what you've experienced through day-to-day stuff. The stuff that I've dealt with, the year 2022 was a very rough one. Like September to November, there was about 4 incidents, from shootouts to a guy trying to kill his wife with a knife, and we kicked the door down and we were going to shoot him, and then he dropped the knife, so we went hand to hand. And but those situations are so extreme that I don't really encounter them in my day-to-day life. So I can't interject my feelings on humanity on an everyday person, because they're not aggressive with me. They're not shouting at me. They're not trying to go for my weapon. They're not rushing me with a weapon. So the stuff that I've exposed to is very hard to translate to day-to-day life in terms of distrusting a person, or because when I've every situation I've been in, I'm dealing with the most extreme and worst part of a person. And
which is very rare.
Which is very rare.
When this guy cuts in front of you at the shopping center and takes your space in the line, your instinct isn't gonna be like, oh, okay, well, this guy is trying to steal the lady's purse in front. It might, or unless you get signs of it.
And screw the lady's purse. I couldn't care. So I think I said I'd come to it later. You said, was it about my future? Was it about me being in danger? Was it about adrenaline? 2022 October, we arrested a guy through my company that caused about 650,000 rands worth of damage. For like 3 months, he had been coming in and taking copper wire off the roof and that kind of stuff. And
where was it? At the company? At the business?
In Rampart Ridge, one of our clients that we were securing. And it was supposed to be like we knew when he was going to come, his schedule, all that kind of stuff, and we're going to arrest him. And it was supposed to go smooth, and then all of a sudden he's grabbing my partner's gun, and before you know it, we are literally wrestling for our lives. This guy was like 50 kilos. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I've spoken about it a lot, but like he's 50 kilos. Myself and my partner are both, I'm fat and 102, and he was super muscular. At that time, I'll show you a photo. I was a pork chop. And my partner was probably like 92 and lean muscle, and we could not control this guy. He was going for his gun, and we are just fighting for our lives, making sure that muzzle, the gun's not one up. So as long as we can control the weapon in a certain kind of state, we know we're not going to get hurt. But if we don't get this guy under control, something's going to go horribly wrong. And so like after 6 minutes of a scuffle and eventually getting handcuffs him and all that, me and my there's a big court case. I'm still in court 2 years later. Went last week, going on the 2nd of May. We're in trial at the moment. What happened was the cops wouldn't let us open up a case against him. And then Monday, he opened up a case against us. And it's been extortion ever since. Like, pay me this and I'll drop the case. The cops pay us this and we'll get him to drop the case. Like, everything's just been like, oh, security officers, big company, they've got money, they'll pay and then everything will go away. And we have not entertained that. So it's been going on for 2 years now. But after that, I was just like, sweet, not worth it. If it's not my missus, if it's not my family, if it's not my friends, and if it's not serious and within my immediate vicinity. So if I'm at a garage, guys pull guns, mom and kid are there before school getting coffee, I have a responsibility to utilize my skills and the weapon on me to defend those people's lives, but I'm not chasing it. I'm not getting a call on the phone and rushing to the scene. I'm not getting a suspects here and I'm going after it in my immediate vicinity. I have a duty, otherwise it must be family and friends. I'm not engaging.
What's your view on like the general population carrying a firearm?
So, again, I didn't actually want to go too much into the gun stuff, but it's a massive part of who I am. The bow hunting and the YouTube channel and the filming and all that kind of stuff is who I am now. But what led me up to here is the firearm stuff. But you got to have a lot of self-awareness if you're going to carry a gun, because you need to understand if you have a flight or fight response. My missus is a freeze. You got the 3 Fs, the flight, freeze, and fight. My missus is a complete freeze. If she's put under any kind of pressure in an immediate situation from dogs attacking our dogs or whatever, she's just frozen. Like, they can't get a word out. Not conducive to put a firearm in her hands, because she will not defend her life in the case of a situation taking place or unfolding. If you flight response, then not every time do you get to run away or evade a situation, but again, not conducive. But if you are someone that reacts with aggression to aggression, then I would say get a firearm. Then once you got a firearm, you got to spend not even hours, not even days, you got to spend years getting super lethal, go on courses, learn combat in and around vehicles, combat in and around structures, clearing structures, learning injured shooter courses and drills. And then, you don't die from a gunfight, you die from gunshot wounds, or you die from the wounds that you sustain within a gunfight. So then go on some stop the bleed courses. Deployed Concept, a fantastic company, goes into complete depth on how to preserve life when, fatally injured. So I think it's a massive rabbit hole that someone has to go down, because if you buy a gun, you're not safe. You're going to pull it at the wrong time. You're going to be a shit shot. You put in civilians and might cause collateral damage when you engage. So buying a gun's not the end of it. My presence is people should own firearms. They should be good with a firearm. They should be able to defend themselves. They should carry it every day. This idea that you buy a gun, you put it in the safe, it's just...
How are you going to get the safe open if you're dorsing there in your 90s and then
very,
someone breaks into your house?
And being in the security industry where we have our guys responding to home break-ins, home invasions, that kind of stuff, we will tell you every single time they didn't know it was happening until they were in the situation, which means you need immediate access to your firearm. So, and then again, even in vehicles, guys don't have it on them. They put it like in a holster that's attached to the seat, or they put it under the steering wheel, or that firearm needs to be on you at all times so that you can control it at all times. If they pull you out the car, that gun's now with the car. If you try to draw your gun because now you're forced to, because the only way you can fight is to draw your firearm because it's not on person, it might have been the wrong time to engage them. They might be on your 3, 9, 12, and maybe 2, 4 guys approaching the vehicle. And now you got to make a decision. I've got to go for my gun, or I've got to give up my firearm completely with the vehicle. So keeping the gun on you just keeps your options open. But again, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. carry a gun if you have the self-awareness that you are able to react to aggression with aggression.
And also, you have the responsibility then to be proficient. You have the responsibility, if you got kids, they need to be if they're young, semi-proficient, because they need to know that there's a gun there.
Semi-educated that this thing's dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, again, I always used to be like, carry one up. I think when it's on you, it should be one up. But when you're in the house around kids, boys are always inquisitive. They'll hop on a ladder to go to the top of the cupboard, to wherever you hide it, they will find it. So maybe at home, if you've got kids and stuff, don't keep it one up. But once my gun is on me or my firearm is on me, I'm carrying one up and it's ready to go.
So you mentioned your childhood. How has that influenced you and your family now? You know, the principles that you're going to impart with your family.
I wanted to have kids for the longest of times, and then recently something came into me that now I don't want kids, but now I do want kids. What I've said to my missus, if we have kids, I'll be the best father I can be, and if we don't have kids, that will be okay as well. Like, I'm on the fence at the moment. We're focusing on the wedding end of the year. It's a big year for us career-wise as well. Career changes for me, hopefully. So maybe kids just isn't in the picture or the conversation at the moment, but we both know that at some stage we'll probably be ready. But I think, be a present father. I think because I didn't grow up with a lot, I don't have a goal to give my future kids everything, but I have a goal to teach them everything that I didn't get to have the opportunity to learn, and maybe give them the tools and the skills and all that I wasn't given, or maybe I had to learn later in life. But then also from a financial standpoint, not having money, I have a big goal to have some kind of financial freedom and success. And then growing up, obviously, in an unstable household, a dad not to protect us, and then a stepdad that abused us and took away that security within the household. I think that's, and then at 14, stepping up and trying to take him on, which was just stupid. But I think that distilled this protector in me. And that's where, military and bodyguarding and all that kind of stuff came into play. And now it's been repurposed into a place of like, I'll do anything to protect my family. But because of this court case, I've realized, like, if I'm going to go to jail and have to fight off Nigis trying to, rape me or whatever it is, it must be because my missus was going to die, my family was going to die, it must be so worth it.
Not because you wrestled a guy to take his gun.
Not because of work.
Yeah.
And not for a property that I have no invested interest in, not for people that I have absolutely no affiliation with. If I'm going to go spend 20, because in South Africa, self-defense cases are touch and go with the courts and the justice system and all that. So, like, if I'm going to go spend 25 years in jail, it must be for a very, very true to the core purpose. And that would be friends, family, and then knowing that I'm doing the right thing if it's in my immediate vicinity.
Bro, I look forward to us going and hunting. What are we going to hunt?
Definitely not an ostrich. Finding them hard to source, but I've got great places now. I've made so many contacts. We can definitely sort something out.
What's the ideal animal for my first kill? With a bow.
With a bow.
Being as inexperienced as I am.
The one that is not on its game that day.
Okay. So probably I'm the one who's not going to be on my game.
With a price cap, because it could be a buffalo that's completely not awake, but I don't have 100,000 Rand for a video.
Bro, I thought you were going to invest in me.
No, so with a price limit, the one that's not on its A game, that's how you have to walk and stalk. I gave up a perfect opportunity to hunt a beautiful impala ram because I told myself I've hunted so many impala. So, like, I'm going to go after that black wildebeest because I've never hunted black wildebeest. And on that day, that was the wrong call. I knew in my heart I should have gone after the impala. He was walking downhill. Wind was in my favor. I could have shot from an elevated position. He would have never seen me until I peeked over with my bow. But I told myself, I want to go after a species that I hadn't hunted before. And that was the wrong call. So after that day, I'm just like, what the bush gives you, what the wind is giving you, what the sounds are giving you. You might have a perfect stalk wind and everything's in favor, and it's just a bunch of dry leaves for the next 100 meters. That animal's going to know you're there before you can even get into bow range. So what the bush gives you is what you take with the price gap.
And then in closing, what would be your ideal hunt? With Cameron Haynes or something? Like, what animal?
Funny enough, and I didn't even say, I said I was about to make it really hard for myself. tomorrow I pick up a stick and string bow. So like a good old-fashioned piece of wood that's handcrafted with a string on it.
And then the arrow's got that suction cup on the end.
No suction cup. No suction cup. But yeah, so that's actually where I'm going to be phasing out to. Because of my partnership with Magnum, I have access to almost any bow that I want to shoot with. So compound bows, crossbows, all that stuff is sorted by being partnered with them. And it's time to go to the next challenge. I mean, I pick up a bow and in 7 hours, I can shoot 100 yards with it. So it gets very quick. So the hunt is my challenge. But from an archery side, I'm moving to traditional.
And the animal side, like what's your dream? Is there a dream animal that might not even be in South Africa, but something that you've maybe watched on YouTube? Like
okay, so absolute dream animal. Talk to my missus about it all the time. I'd love, not animal, dream destination, Alaska. And whether that's a moose, a grizzly bear, or I've also been researching a Kodiak brown bear, which is apparently bigger than a grizzly bear. I could be wrong, but I've done enough research to think I'm right. That would be...
But surely one arrow is not enough for like that kind of sized animal.
One arrow is enough for a giraffe.
I would seem to think that a grizzly bear would
It depends.
be stronger.
So it's not about strength, it's about where you place your shot.
But I mean in terms of its hide or like its fur, its coat.
So if you had to think of it from a hunting point of view, even if you shot multiple arrows, if an animal's hide is too thick for an arrow, multiple arrows won't do any good.
I was just thinking like let's say you hit it in a critical position, but it does 20% damage. Then you need to do another 20%.
Yeah. But again, it's all math. Archery and specifically bow hunting. And when you bow hunting species that require a specific arrow and broadhead and all that, it's all math. So once you make an arrow heavier enough with a good cut on contact, fixed broadhead, full fletch, you can't not be successful. The difference is shot placement. If you hit the bone, if you hit like it's not going to get any penetration, you've just injured the animal and he's run off or he's running at you. A bear, 9 times or not 9 times out of 10, but a lot of the stuff that I watch and the guys that I talk to from the States, like a bear charges. If he sees you and he tries to get away from you and you place a shot, he turns and goes for you.
Would you then have like a rifle or something with you for a quick fire in case this thing's coming and you're not able to reload your arrow?
So I think by legislation, they even have guides in the States, but same as South Africa, when you do dangerous game or big game or anything like that, you have to have a professional hunter with you that has a rifle with a caliber large enough to take down that animal. So I presume you would have a guy with you that is ready to place that shot.
That's taking it too easy, bro. You need to challenge yourself.
So yeah, so Cameron Haynes had a bear hunt that he did 2 years ago, but he only released the video about 9 months ago or so. And he was so pissed because the guy shot the bear.
I saw that. I watched that video.
He didn't release that video for a year because he felt
I just watched the real one, Instagram.
Okay. Now I watched the 45.
I think I'm gonna go watch that video now.
But and he was very upset about that because as hunters, you've taken away the factor of a bow hunt if you've shot it with a gun.
Because I remember in that video, tell me if it's the right one. Like he shoots it, and then the bear comes, and then he shoots it again, and then the guy with the rifle shoots.
Yeah. So the whole video is he shoots it and it runs. They track after it, but it goes into this thick brush that's like all overhead, and like the only time you're going to see the bear is if he's like 5 or 10 yards away from you. They find it bedded, and he places a shot on it while it runs at him. But the professional hunter or the guy didn't realize that the arrow went off. And he shoots. But at the end of the day, and he even says in his podcast when he talks about it, or I think he even speaks about it afterwards, like, yes, he wants to be true to it, and the bear must attack him if it attacks him. But he had 2 friends, a guide and his friend, that might not necessarily have the same mindset and want to go home after a hunting trip and not attacked by a bear. And also
when it's a guy's job to protect you.
Yes, it's very tough. I always had the idea that if I ever had to do like a lion hunt or something, I would want to go with my pistol, my bow, and no one else. But unfortunately, by law,
you need a cameraman at least.
I don't know who would. I see
GoPro
or 360 camera, just like shoot it up on the shoulder. But by legislation and by law, you're not allowed to do that stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of the cats, if you even get to hunt them, are canned or something. You know, they've been raised in a cage, and then they get let out when the Americans come through to shoot. So, yeah,
which is not even the same thing.
No, I have no intention of doing cats or anything like that. But next challenge, one, becoming a better filmmaker. I'm busy working on a video for Saturday, and I put so much more effort. It's just a normal video, like a weekly video that I do about archery or a goal or whatever. But I put so much more effort on like testing my skills as a videographer and as a video editor and all that kind of stuff, and just enjoying that process. So definitely want to get better at short form making and documenting my journey, and communicating it effectively through YouTube. That is both clickable, not just clickbait and just for the audience, but stuff that I enjoy. And then really going into this traditional archery stuff, which is going to be a learning curve on its own.
Great. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, bro. Thank you for coming through.
Time went very quickly.
It did.